and the reducing or raising taxes on the rich, those things. This dog and pony show has zero to do with policy and everything to do with politics. Obama already knows not one of these proposals will ever make it within smelling distance of the floor for a vote in either chamber. What's being done here is essentially a handoff of the baton to Hillary Clinton and all the Democrat hopefuls with an eye towards the next election. This doesn't make it a stupid idea for the president. He doesn't need to jack up the tax rates to be successful. He just needs to make the Republicans refuse to jack up the tax rates. Soak that up. He doesn't need to jack the tax rates up to be successful. He just needs to make the Republicans refuse to jack up the tax rates. Do you see how much harder our hill is to climb, message-wise especially?
But I thought what was really great was that there was actually kind of an answer in the article. And that's that our argument is not we don't want to jack up the tax rates. Our argument is that we need to return to an aspirational type of society rather than a jealous society. And he did explain that when times are hard, it's a lot easier to be jealous of the guys who are doing well. That's, it's kind of a human nature default way to be, is that when you're not doing so well and there's a lot of pressure on you, what makes you feel good is to express jealousy and anger at those who are doing well. And Obama and the left is tapping into that, and they're very successful at it. And they're because we see more and more every year this huge growth. Yes, this huge growth in people who just hate the rich people, tax the rich. Well, why do we tend to think back longingly towards the days of Reagan? It's our mythological version of Reagan, the Camelot version of Reagan that we have, and it's because the way we remember that he made us feel about ourselves. I don't know if he did make us feel that way about ourselves, but it's the way we think he made us feel about ourselves. And that's that the future was bright and that we could succeed and achieve and do more and be more and get more and be richer. And we were willing to aspire to the American dream. And it was easier for us I'm going to love the rich people because I want to be one. And we had this aspirational energy, and you need to have a guy who inspires you. So you need to have a charismatic leader to kind of trigger that conversation. But then once you can get to a critical mass, then it starts to feed on itself, and you end up with, Alex P. Keaton, who is the aspirational high school student. But that's the way to look at the rich versus poor divide, and we need to turn it around, and instead of letting it be the anger at the rich people, turn it around and have it be aspire to be a rich person. And Republican policies, we reduce taxes across the board so that the middle class can become the rich, and so that the poor can become the middle class. We want everybody to move up a step. And that means that some of these decisions that we have to make, it's going to make the rich richer, but more importantly, it's going to make 5 rich people richer, and it's going to make 100 poor people richer, and it's going to make 1,000 in the middle class even richer.
Here's what I love about what you said, because when we're talking about these policies, if we can frame them and demonstrate them as putting roadblocks up for people who want to become rich, that they're trying to shut the door, the president's policies are trying to shut the door behind all the people who are already in that rich class.
Exactly.
Instead of allowing us to make more, they're trying to keep the rest of the people out of that universe, make it harder for them to get there when they get ahead. Keep smashing them down. If we could try to cast it that way, that they're trying to close the gate to keep more people from doing better, I think that would work.
What are the magic phrases, Andy? Help us out.
the magic phrases for convincing people.
For turning the anger at rich people around to make it being an aspirational, positive movement that we want from the middle to move up. That the Republican ideas of cutting taxes, it's not that we want the rich to get richer. Our proposals are not all about cutting taxes and saving money for the wealthy. Our proposals are about rejuvenating the nation as a whole and making us look forward, and this shining city on, not shining city on a hill, but whatever all the old phrases were in the 80s of optimism and future so bright I gotta wear shades, that stuff.
Well, I always lead with, if I take more of what you have, won't you cling to what you have left? They say, well, yeah. I say, okay, do you believe that the rich are perfect people? They're all sinless creatures. Everyone's a cross between Jesus, Gandhi, Mother Teresa rolled into one. Well, no. Oh, okay, so they're self-seeking like us. So if we take more of what the rich have, won't they cling to what they have left? You see, when they cling to what they have left, they charge more, they promote less, they hire less, they create less. You don't want that. Whenever we take more from the wealthy, they are going to create far less of all the things that benefit us, which means jobs. Okay, redistributing wealth, taking from one to the other, that doesn't create anything. And to create jobs, you have to have the benefit. You have to have profit from creating. You're taking that away. You're saying, I want to force this wealth from here over here. And by the way, why do you want to control their money? I don't have a quick answer for you really quick. We all know the economic answers. What you're doing is stifling economic growth, but they're not going to listen to that. So I usually get into terms like control. If the rich gave all they had to the poor, would you still want to raise their taxes? Well, no, I wouldn't. Right. You wouldn't, because they're giving it all. So the reason you want to raise their taxes is to force them to give more. You want to control their charity. How would you like that done to you? Okay, I try to personalize it. And then I try to remind them, by the way, you're rich compared to 95% of the world. So
I'm glad you said that, because somebody actually posted that and tagged me on it about the 1% of the world thing. Right. And I'm definitely going to be using that in my response.
Yeah. Would you like, for the benefit of the world, would you like all the poor in America who are richer than most of the world, would you like the poor in America to have to give 5 times what they currently give to charity and have it given to nations that they don't get to choose? Because that's exactly what you're saying should be done to the people who are richer than you. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Absolutely. And speaking of giving riches to people who might not, having misappropriation of funds, we'll say. I just want to, real quick before we go, I want to talk about something. It sort of ties in with the elitism, the anti-intellectualism, all that fun stuff. Ted Cruz got named to got named to head the the subcommittee on space, science, and competitiveness, where he will oversee NASA, and the left has just lost their mind over this. And I saw this on HuffPo. Ted Cruz, and here's the headline that they thought was correct to post. Ted Cruz, longtime foe of NASA and science, will oversee NASA and science in new Congress.
He's been the minority chairman of that committee for however many years.
Absolutely.
Now that the Republicans are in charge, he's the guy at the top. It's not like it was a decision.
It's mind blowing. But the thing is that it doesn't matter that it was appropriate that he become the head of the subcommittee.
This is the conventional wisdom that Republicans hate science.
Exactly. And to that point, I was very happy to see in Politico Senator Rand Paul and Representative Lamar Smith actually penned not a response to that article, but a response to this meme that the GOP somehow is anti-science, entitled, novelly enough, no, the GOP is not at war with science. Let me just put this in the in the chat there.
Because we don't
I'm not
fight
gonna.
wars that we would lose.
I'm sorry.
We don't fight wars that we would lose, and you'd have to lose a war with science. I mean, because facts and stuff.
Yeah, and as we've talked about before earlier in the show, we are not at all at war with science. We embrace science on a lot of different levels. It's ridiculous to say that we're at war with science. But what Rand and Lamar get to in the piece is they say, for example, it is Congress's constitutional responsibility to ask questions when the National Science Foundation decides to spend public funds on a climate change-themed musical. That's what qualifies. That's something that qualifies as science. $700,000 for that.
Wait, what? Climate change themed what now?
Musical. A climate change-themed musical. Ostensibly
My tax
for
dollars.
Yes, ostensibly to go to schools and do performances in auditoriums, that sort of thing.
Well, there's a song from Oklahoma called "It's Going to Be Another Hot Day."
That's it.
I don't think that's one of the songs that they used. Or an investigation of Tea Party activity on social media, $919,000.
What?
$919,000.
Somebody's been reading my posts for $1 million.
Yes.
That poor bastard.
Or to study bicycle designs. Anyway, he goes through all this long list of stuff that is put under the head of science, of the National Science Foundation, but really these are scientific studies that we're deeming appropriate to send our taxpayer dollars to. And sure, this is less than 1% of the budget that we spend each year. But that doesn't mean that $9 million or that $1 million is just pocket change that we can spend willy-nilly on stupid things. We do have kind of a large amount of debt.
Well, and if you can't cut the small waste, how are you ever going to cut the large waste? I mean,
exactly.
You have to. But this is sort of the left saying cutting funding for NASA is because you hate science is the same as our side saying cutting funding for the military is because you hate the soldiers. Every department of the federal government can handle a budget cut.
I agree, and I think that it's duplicitous to say that that we can't cut some military spending. But I'm also more libertarian-ish on spending maybe than some. But what I want to bring to everybody's attention is not just this piece, which is a great one, and I think makes the case very well. I think that Rand and Lamar do a great job of saying, hey, we do think that there's a place for us to be spending money and lots of money on promoting science and on investigating things. There's a response, a rebuttal from Bob C. I think is his name, Seay, on Huffington Post again, and the title of this one is even better. It's even better than the war on science. Turning science into the new welfare queen. That is his response to the Rand Paul, Lamar Smith.
We hate science people because they're like poor welfare queens, and they're taking government money. So he's saying that we don't want to give government money to scientists, same as we don't want to give government money to poor people because we hate them all, or something.
In an article in Politico, Rand Paul attempts to create, and he doesn't mention Lamar Smith, he just says Rand Paul. I wonder why he's just singling out Rand Paul there. Attempts to create a mythology that he hopes will convince Americans to hate science. Paul knows that if he can get voters to resent scientific research as much as they resent minorities and poor people, then he and his fellow Republicans will be free to ignore inconvenient facts about climate change, population trends, and other data that goes against the Republican agenda. That's just a small sample of this. It gets even worse. There's so much in this that's absolutely bunk. And here's another thing. This was one of the more disturbing parts of this. On the concept that we talked about it, $1 million to investigate Tea Party internet usage. The thing about science is that you never know where these discoveries will lead. Research on the Tea Party's use of the internet, to use one of Rand Paul's examples of wasteful spending, could lead to a better understanding of how all groups use social media, including